What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlemania here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including Andrade released and the real reason behind it, what is actually next for Andrade, a legend not wrestling at WrestleMania 43, a top WWE name turning heel, is Bianca Belair UFC-bound, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now let's hit the intro and get straight into our first story. Now, our first story looks at huge news as WWE releases Andrade. Now, our top story today takes a look at the fallout of Andrade's WWE departure. Yesterday, eagle-eyed fans on X noticed that Andrade had been quietly moved over to the alumni section of WWE.com, and then it was theorized that this was a mistake on WWE's part, mainly because there was no rumblings that Andrade had left, or even reports that he was unhappy in the company. However, a few hours later, numerous sources, including Fightful Select and Body Slam, confirmed the news, and it is official: Andrade is once again no longer a WWE talent. According to Fightful Select, Andrade's release wasn't a case of his contract expiring, and his departure isn't linked to any additional cuts. We were told that this would not have been a case of his contract simply expiring, as he has more than 18 months on his deal when he signed last year. Fightful Select is told that his departure is isolated and not connected to any additional cuts. The report added that the WWE departure was in the works for at least a week, and plans for Andrade and Phoenix to win the tag titles were scrapped. One WWE source indicated that the departure had been in the works for at least a week, and that this did affect immediate creative plans after SummerSlam, which was his last appearance. Since then, Fightful Select has been told that at one point, Andrade and Phoenix were slated to take on the Wyatt Six at Clash in Paris. This was the match when Fightful asked a person in creative about them not being in. We were told if it was possible, he would be. And the tag title win report has sizable credence, and there has been leaked graphics of Andrade and Phoenix in the Clash in Paris promotional material, which managed to surface online. Interestingly, the release was kept private behind the scenes in WWE, as according to Fightful Select, talent in the locker room had no idea that Andrade had even left the company. This is a really bizarre situation to say the very least. But what was the real reason behind his release? Now, when the news first broke, the assumption was that Andrade had asked for his WWE release. Andrade may have been frustrated with his WWE creative direction, and it was theorized that he was unhappy with being featured in a tag team on SmackDown. However, in a shocking twist, Sports Illustrated reported that the departure wasn't a mutual decision, and it was WWE themselves who decided to cut the former NXT champion. Sources indicate to the takedown on SI that Andrade was effectively released by the company, and that the departure was not a mutual decision. He'd not been backstage at TV tapings for nearly a month, and multiple talent were being told Saturday afternoon that the 35-year-old had been let go. The exact nature of the release, however, is not entirely clear at this time, and it was emphasized that WWE doesn't typically offer contracts that are a year and a half long. So why would WWE cut Andrade, especially whilst he was in the midst of a very popular storyline with Rey Fenix? Well, this story has taken an unusual turn, as it's also been reported by Body Slam via Patreon that Andrade had disappeared and that WWE were unable to reach him. It was inferred to Cody Rhodes at PWN originally that Andrade had been unreachable for several weeks in the lead up to this point, with several reported instances of creative and booking differences since Andrade's return to WWE in early 2024. Therefore, it seems like Andrade decided to ghost WWE and ignore his contractual commitments. It's likely that WWE felt they had no choice in the matter and decided to release Andrade from his WWE deal. But Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer Radio also weighed in on the release, with the report of a possible disciplinary action made by WWE. I don't know the whole story, but I do know it was a discipline thing. It was not his doing at all. You know, it wasn't like, oh, he was not being used well, so he's unhappy. I'm positive he wasn't unhappy, but it wasn't him asking out. Meltzer also broke down the timeline of the events, mentioning it's actually a story from a couple of weeks ago that just broke today. I mean, he wasn't fired until today, but a couple of weeks ago, there was a disciplinary thing. And all I know is it was at a TV shoot, and he was told to go home, and he's not been used since. And when he was sent home, you don't hear guys being sent home that often anymore like you did back in the day. The feeling when he got sent home was that it must be serious, because you don't hear about that. Now, Meltzer elaborated on the disciplinary and mentioned that it's not fully known yet, but it was told that it was not drug-related, it was not alcohol-related, and it was not marriage-related, which people assumed was down to his former marriage with former WWE Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. as it was definitely speculated that there could have been some bad blood after their divorce. However, the divorce was all the way back in October 2024, and a long time has elapsed between those times. Meltzer finished off by saying, "Nobody would tell me what it was, but it was enough to be sent home." And naturally, there is a lot of disappointment from fans, as this is the second main roster run from the talented star that is completely flopped. While some of the blame should surely fall on WWE for failing to give Andrade a sustained push, it looks like this push was indeed coming with a tag title win, so the blame unfortunately falls on Andrade if he decided to ignore WWE's calls. There has been no explanation as to why Andrade has decided to act this way, and it's probably only a matter of time before Andrade or his team releases a formal statement. But what is actually next for Andrade? Now, Andrade has now burned bridges in WWE, and due to his AEW run also not going as people initially expected, it was assumed that AEW return would be out of the picture. Luckily for Andrade, that doesn't appear to be the case, as according to Fightful Select, Andrade left on good terms, and a return isn't impossible at this stage. Andrade departed AEW on less than ideal terms in December 2023. AEW had wanted to retain Andrade and offered him a long-term contract extension that they believed he had agreed to. However, shortly before his last match with Miro, AEW sources indicated that he informed them that he wouldn't be signing the extension, which affected their creative plans moving forward. AEW sources we spoke to had no idea Andrade had departed WWE. We were told that no bridge is truly burned at AEW, and as long as nothing heinous is tied to a departure, a return wouldn't be impossible. Now there's fuel to the fire when it comes to an Andrade AEW return, as one of their top stars, MJF, had teased working with Andrade via X, mentioning, "Hey yo Andrade, I'm gonna be in Mexico beating the ever-loving shit out of Mystico in front of all your broke-ass countrymen. Let me know if you want to grab a marg before I hop on my jet to Toronto to whoop Mark Briscoe's hillbilly ass." Now, if Andrade does indeed return to AEW, he'll be the first wrestler, well, to date, to go from WWE to AEW, back to WWE, and then back to AEW. Next up, is Jey Uso really turning heel? Now, all week there's been rampant speculation that former world champion Jey Uso could be turning heel. Jey has been showing more heel tendencies as of late on WWE television, and with him hitting a spear on Raw on LA Knight and Jimmy Uso telling Jey he's starting to act and sound like Roman Reigns, fans were convinced that main event Jey is now turning heel. Body Slam via Patreon have provided an update on this, and according to the reputable outlet, as things stand, a heel turn for Jey is not on the horizon. As of now, there are no creative plans within WWE to turn Jey Uso heel. Internally, he's still viewed as one of the company's top babyfaces, and his current presentation reflects that. In recent weeks, Jey is reunited with his brother Jimmy Uso on WWE Raw after months of working separately. The Usos are once again teaming up on television, with their first major match back set for WrestlePalooza against Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed of the Vision. This reunion has been a focal point of WWE programming, with the brothers showing strong chemistry and fan support despite some storyline tension. The report adds that the plans could of course change, but Jey will be remaining as a babyface act alongside his brother Jimmy as the Usos. As always in WWE, plans can change quickly if the right storyline opportunity presents itself, but for now, Jey remains positioned as a fan favourite and a key part of the Usos' renewed run. Now this is definitely the right call from WWE, as turning one of the most popular acts in the company heel is a huge risk. Jey was crying out for some character development, and Jey's frustrations revolving around losing the world title and being unable to reclaim said title don't necessarily need to result in a heel turn. In fact, it makes sense that Jey would take a page out of Roman Reigns' book, as he's been more successful than him. But WWE reuniting the Usos is also a smart move, as the tag division on Raw is on life support, and inserting a credible, legitimate tag team into the mix could be the savior the division truly needs. Next up, a legend not wrestling at Wrestlemania 43. Since Wrestlemania 43 was announced for Saudi Arabia, there have been rumors that Shawn Michaels could be approached to come out of retirement for a match. However, the Heartbreak Kid has made it clear during an interview with Nightcap that this won't be happening, and he won't be coming out of retirement. Not a chance. Not a chance. And even if they weren't, I'm so blessed and so fortunate to have done what I've done. But I'm so overjoyed to be doing what I do now and helping, the future of the WWE and to be a part of that. This will be welcome news, no doubt, especially after HBK's call to come out of retirement a number of years ago didn't exactly go down well. HBK had the perfect send-off back at WrestleMania 26, and his 2018 match at Crown Jewel was labelled a complete disaster by many. HBK himself has even distanced himself from the match, which is completely understandable. Another key factor in HBK not wrestling again, especially after WrestleMania 43, is his health and well-being. According to the WWE Hall of Famer, he's had multiple surgeries, and he has 2 knee replacements coming up this year. Hell yes, I've had my back fused, I've had my shoulder replaced, and I've got 2 knees that I'm getting replaced in probably a month, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I wish Mr. WrestleMania all the best in his upcoming surgeries. Next up, what is WWE right now? WWE goes between embracing the art of wrestling or alienating it altogether. Now WWE's latest thing is distancing themselves from actively being a sport, and instead they like to claim that they produce movies about the sport of wrestling. During the Game's interview with Nightcap, he went into detail on his new company stance, and he compared WWE to the Rocky movie. This is what we do, right? I say this a lot of times when people don't understand. Like if we're talking to network executives, they're trying to figure out what we are. I say we are less boxing and more Rocky, right? We're not the sport, we're a movie about the sport. But Triple H continued by saying, Rocky is really a love story. It just happens to have boxing as a background and the metaphor for all things that he has to overcome and do. A business, when you talk about that emotion, you talk about the storytelling, you talk about all those things, that's really where it resonates. It's why our business is evergreen. It's the story, it's the spectacle, it's all those things. That's where we're different. We're a spectacle and storytelling. And naturally, these comments have led to significant discourse online, with one fan even claiming that WWE is more like a B-movie with their current creative output. Next up, Rhea Ripley killed off by Art the Clown. Now, if you didn't know, Rhea Ripley is a well-known horror fan, and she had a stage moment with Art the Clown from the Terrifier films. During the performance, the clown grabbed Ripley's Labubu toy, prompting Ripley to slap him, but then the clown retaliated, slapping her back, knocking her down and finishing the act by killing her with a cleaver. And this, of course, was a theatrical death scene, but it was so cool, and Rhea Ripley even mentioned that this was a dream come true, expressing excitement about having lived out one of her horror fantasies. And finally, Bianca Belair UFC-BOUND. Our final story today takes a look at the potential of WWE star Bianca Belair fighting in the UFC. Belair was asked about her future aspirations during an interview with Sports Illustrated, and Belair discussed whether she'd be interested in fighting for UFC. I respect that sport so much, I think we've seen crossover before with UFC fighters coming over into WWE. We've seen Punk before going over to UFC. I think I'm very happy and comfortable being in WWE. If I ever did that, I would train extremely hard. I know it's not something you could just walk into and think you're going to be successful. I've learned to never say never, but I know my mom would be very scared if I ever did that. And with TKO owning both UFC and WWE, there's a ton of possibility for a huge crossover. But for now, it looks like Belair is more than content with being one of WWE's biggest stars. But there you have it, folks. The wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.